Today we are going to talk about the Centurion, my all-time favorite tank. If we could reach the 150 likes within 24 hours, that means that a new video will release within 48 hours of this video's release. So make sure to like the video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and here we go. The Centurion was designed with one goal in mind: to get enough armor to fulfill the infantry support role and to get enough speed to serve as a cruiser. The development of the Centurion started back in 1943, and the first couple of experimental Centurions were sent to Belgium in January 1945. But they arrived too late to actually partake in World War II. The Centurion, however, is regarded as one of the most successful designs of the post-war era, with 4,423 tanks built between 1946 and 1962, with about 13 basic marks or variants being developed. Back in 1950, a Centurion unit would cost about 35,000 British pounds, and when you account for inflation, that will roughly be 1.3 million British pounds. It was in service from 1946 until actually the present day. It saw a lot of action throughout its entire career, starting its first war, the Korean War, with the British 8th Army King's Royal Irish Hussars, but more on that later. The Centurion started out with one of the best British anti-tank guns it had to offer at the time, the 17-pounder, and this was fitted on the Mark I design. Later on the Mark III design, the main armament was changed from the 17-pounder to the 20-pounder, and then later on the Mark V/II design it was changed to the 105mm. Also, one of the most notable changes was its turret, which was immediately changed in the Mark II. The Centurion was actually kind of a large vehicle. Its hull was 7.6 meters long. Its width was almost 3.4 meters and its height was slightly over 3 meters. The Centurion could house up to 4 crew members, and that consisted of the commander, the gunner, the loader and the driver. The Centurion had also the same engine as the Cromwell and the Comet. Its engine was a Rolls-Royce Meteor engine which could produce up to 650 horsepower, and it had a horsepower to ton ratio of 13. It also had a 5-speed Merritt Brown Z51R gearbox. The Centurion had an operational range of 100 kilometers, and in cross-terrain this would be reduced to a mere 52 kilometers. And its top speed would sit at 34 kilometers an hour. The Centurion wasn't very well armored. Its thinnest point was 51mm thick and its thickest point was 152mm thick. I got a picture with the armor values. If you're interested in that, I'll show it now on screen, so feel free to pause the video and have a better look at it. These armor values are from the Centurion 7-10, so keep in mind that the other marks could have different armor values, but it's still very interesting to look at. Like what's shown, the Centurion has the strongest point of armor on the turret, so in theory this tank would do very well in a hull down position. This is a military tactic which only exposes your turret and your main armament to enemy fire, reducing the silhouette and making you harder to hit, and also hiding your weaker points of your tank behind an object. The Centurion was also exported to a lot of countries like Canada and Australia getting them relatively early on in the 1950s. The Dutch, Swiss, Danes and Austrian armies all got the Centurions as well. The Swedish also had Centurions, Mark III's to be exact, but these predated NATO standardization, so they had to be made compliant later. These vehicles were called Stridsvagn 81s. There was another batch of 110 Mark X purchased in 1958 with the new L7 called the Stridsvagn 101. By the 1960s these vehicles were gradually updated to the Stridsvagn 102 and the Stridsvagn 101R standards. The former was upgraded with a Remo system. Other upgrades consisted of an armor increase and a Shoto Kalev motorization. Egypt acquired some but replaced them later with Soviet and US models. They saw combat in the 1967 war against Israeli Centurions. Iraq also purchased some vehicles, but they were later reserved and deactivated before the first Gulf War in 1991. Jordan also acquired some vehicles. Their chassis later reused for the Temsa APC. Kuwait and Lebanon also used the Centurion for years. They are also now retired. The Israeli Defense Force owns a great deal of these vehicles and adapt them to the Shot. They have been now retired but played a crucial part in the nation's early survival wars. South Africa is the longest time user of this vehicle. South African Centurions were converted to the highest modernized version, with the help of the IDF engineers and modernization kits. This became the Olifant, which is still in service today. Somalia also used some Centurions, which is later used by the Somaliland rebels. And for some time the Libyan Free Army fielded the Centurion AVRE 105mm from Jordan. India also acquired Centurion Mk7s and they saw intensive action during the Pakistani War of 1965. Singapore also purchased 63 Mk3s and Mk7s from India in 1975. Now we come to the fun part, operational history. It's a lot, so I'll try to talk about most of these briefly. The first war the Centurions were actually actively used was the Korean Wars. This was with the British 8th King's Royal Irish Hussars, which landed at Busan on the 14th of November 1950, followed by other units. Engagement included the Battle of Indian River in 1951 and the Second Battle of the Hook in 1953. The Centurions were also used at the Suez Canal crisis, where the Royal Marines landed at Port Said on the 5th and 6th of November, as well as the 6th Royal Tank Regiment, facing T-34s and Su-100s, quickly gaining the upper hand without any losses. Indian-Pakistani War of 1965. Like I previously stated, the Indians had some Centurions and they were used in the Indian-Pakistani War. 4 Indian armored regiments were equipped with the Centurion in 1965. At the following battles, they proved to be superior to the Pakistani M47 Pattons, because most of the 32 losses at Asar Qatar alone were M4 Sherman, while the Pakistani nearly lost 70 Pattons. India's Centurion were also committed to the liberation of the Bangladesh in the War of 1971. They also saw service in the Middle East in one of the most famous post-World War II wars, what was the Six-Day War. The Israeli Defense Force fielded 293 of their 385 Centurions. Their outstanding success was due to tactics, training and some luck. But they managed to destroy a large number of enemy tanks and even some enemy Centurions, while managing to capture 30 of the 44 fielded by Jordan. But their fame really came from the Battle of the Valley of the Tears. Outnumbered 1-5, they nevertheless managed to wipe out and repel the bulk of the Syrian army made of 500 T-54/55 and T-62s. And also the modernized SHO T-tanks were also heavily engaged in the 1982 invasion of Lebanon. It also served in the Vietnam War, where Australia fielded these Centurions in the 1st Armored Regiment. Until 1971 they have been heavily engaged, described by troops and officers alike to be worth their weight in gold. We also saw action in the Angola Civil War, where the SAF Ground Forces involved their newly modernized Olifants. Although South Africa disengaged in 1989, their most severe engagement came in the Battle of Cuito against the Cuba-supported MPLA forces, largely equipped with Soviet tanks. The British also used the Centurion on Operation Motorman in Ireland in 1972, with the 65mm AVRE equipped with dozer blades destroyed barricades set up by the IRA. A single unit of British AVRE was deployed in Operation Desert Storm in 1991. My opinion. Now I'm going to talk about my opinion on this tank. I personally really like this tank because it gave birth to an entire new way of tank development, because it's generally seen as the first main battle tank. It looks amazing, it has decent armor, especially the turret is actually slightly thicker than the Mighty King Tiger's front hull. It had a decent main armament, especially the later versions, and it was able to stay relevant on the battlefield for 40 years, which is very impressive. Anyway guys, that was it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, as there goes a lot of time and effort into making these type of videos. And again, 150 likes within 24 hours will mean that there will be a new video in 48 hours. I also have an IS-2 video on the left worth checking out, and I have a tank playlist on the right if you're interested in that. And other than that, have a very good day.